The dopamine from our phones is taking away from all of our close
Yeah.
relationships. It's something that I'm
Yeah.
working on also. I
Yeah.
turn my phone off every Friday night until sometime Sunday morning
Good
for
for
the
you.
last 17 years.
And that helps?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
a restart, like disconnect from the rest of the world. All
Yeah.
my kids are here. I have very few years left with them, right?
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
going very quickly.
Funny how.
Come here. Come here, though. Yeah, he's crazy, see? Who are you?
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
You have the time today. I did just put down my daughter, so if I ever have to pause for a second, it's only
Whisper. No.
to rock her ass back to sleep, because that girl put us through the ringer last night.
Oh yeah. We
but,
would
it's
like
all
get a
fun.
kid to sleep and then tiptoe. Like no one wake up the kid.
For real. I don't know if this happened to you. I mean, I'm almost 40, so I would imagine when I'm, if I was 20, it wouldn't happen. But now having her and then, putting her to bed, setting her down in the crib, and the second I set her down, now, for whatever reason, my entire body cracks all the time now. So like I'll set her down and then I'll walk away slightly and then just, and I'm like, oh my God. So it almost wakes her up, but I don't know why am I getting old, or, I mean, what the hell happened?
That's funny. Okay, so I'm 44.
Okay.
And my first kid was such a chunker. Like he was like 30 pounds at a year. I mean, he was a big boy.
Oh my.
And he was like backbreaking getting in and out of the crib. So I get it. Like I wasn't fully able to like do it in a graceful handoff.
Right.
Where I was like, my back hurt, like putting him gently down.
Right.
So sometimes it was more of like a little drop,
Right.
And then you're done. Like
Yeah, you're
if
done.
you don't put them down like so easily, you're screwed. They're sleeping
That's
with you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been it's been an adjustment, but it's been so great. I mean, the pros outweigh, I tell everybody, the pros outweigh the cons by a long shot. I mean, there's pros and cons obviously, but like in the moment, you don't think of the cons.
That's great.
Like
Did you want to be a dad? Like, is that something that was like in your plans?
Not at all. No, I mean, even I was very transparent with my wife too. When we got engaged and we talked about that, and I was like, because we've been together. That was all the conversation went, and then we just stopped talking about it. No, we had a lot of conversation with it over the time, and she was in childcare prior to us getting married, so she's
that's helpful.
Yeah, and so she's like obsessed with kids, right? And my whole argument was like, haven't you had enough? Like, didn't you get your itch with these kiddos? And she's like, no, I want my own. It's not the same. And she doesn't sound like that. I don't know why that accent went. That was so typical. But we had a good conversation about it eventually. And then we're like, all right, we'll try. And then we got, to trying the fun stuff. But then for whatever reason, it just wasn't connecting. We got tested, and it took us forever to try to have a kid. And
really?
It wasn't working for whatever reason. I mean, she was fine. I was fine. It just doesn't.
I have lots of friends that have also been in that situation, even in their 20s.
Which is so strange because, we can go down this whole rabbit hole of like the healthcare system and the food we're giving our kids. And I guarantee that has an effect on like
I'm in alignment with you there.
Yeah.
I'm like, I used a doula and a midwife. I never actually even thought about natural childbirth. My husband's kind of a hippy dippy. I was like, okay, I'll see how far I can go and then I'll get the epidural. But I was like actually able to do it.
That's awesome. That's exactly what my wife went through too. She was like, let's see how it goes. Yeah. And, so it took us, probably a year of like naturally trying the fun way. And that wasn't working. So we went through the whole like IUI thing, if you're familiar with that.
Mm-hmm.
We did 3 rounds of that. That didn't work. And then we did IVF, and we did 2 rounds of that, and the second one took. So
nice. Okay.
Yeah. So $200,000 later, and
exactly,
we got this little miracle baby. Who the second she's
you're lucky it worked, because I know people that have tried that for 8 years.
Yeah. Yeah. Not only did it work, but now she's almost like to the point where she's walking, which is exciting. And the second she's able to walk, I'm going to open up a lemonade stand, and she's going to recoup that money. that I spent. I'm going to get her out there in the driveway. She is going to be working her ass off. So
I love it. Yeah.
But we're very lucky, very blessed. And I think that's why kind of we like have this different mentality, which I love to get your opinion on with 4 kids, is like things are obviously way different than when we were kids. I mean, I'm almost 40, so we're around the same bracket. And I think, I don't know what, I mean, it's a lot of things I think that have shifted. I've talked about this on the podcast before. I don't want to bore people, but the reason we're like excited about homeschooling and the reason why we're a little bit more strict when it comes to food and things like that is everyone looks at us like we're weird. And I've always like lived primarily the last 4 or 5 years on a plant-based diet because I was diagnosed with Crohn's a while ago. Mm-hmm. So I kind of like shifted my health to that. And I don't want her to eat vegan because I don't know if that's the best answer, but I think, you know, the right answer is probably somewhere in between being vegan and being carnivore. I mean, I think mostly whole foods, mostly fruits and veggies, a little bit of meat, sure, if it's, you know, maybe grass-fed or organic. I think that it's a happy medium in there. That's why I strongly believe that electric vehicles isn't the solution either. You know, maybe it's half electric, half gas. I mean, I think you have
hybrid. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's okay to do a little bit of both. I mean, I have a Tesla, but I don't think everyone should have a Tesla because then we're going to run into the same issue we ran into with gas, which is supply and demand, right? So I think having all the options is okay, but everyone always gives me like weird looks when I, you know, tell them what our kid eats. You know, she doesn't have chicken nuggets at the age of 1, which a lot of parents, you know, do that, which, you know, whatever.
That is a staple in our house. Yes. We do chicken nuggets, hot dogs. I skip the tater tots, but
there you go.
I do try to cut up some cucumbers and peppers and strawberries and grapes to, you know, go along with that.
And, you know, I talked to my buddy that has 2 kids, and I'm sure you can relate with this, but sometimes you get to the point where you have like an attitude of like how we're going to do things, but then having multiple kids, it ain't fucking easy. Having one kid ain't easy. I can't imagine 4. So
what
sometimes
we thought and how we started is so drastically different from what we're doing now. It is actually crazy. I mean, like I said, we were in Chicago for a decade. Living in Chicago during the pandemic, like, was actually freaking insanity. Like,
well, living in Chicago at all is easy.
We moved to Texas.
Smart.
And, you know, I had 4 kids home. I had a full-time job. I ended up walking away from that because I had 4 kids that had to homeschool. So, you know, I had a nanny. I didn't want somebody in my house that kept getting my kids sick. It was just crazy. And now, to be honest, like, we have been sending our kids to private school since they were 3 years old. I now, like I said, I have a high schooler, 2 middle schoolers. Last year, one was elementary, one was preschool, one was high school, they were all in, like, you know, each of the schools. Yeah. But my husband would probably homeschool, and I've interviewed a lot of people around the homeschooling phenomenon. I am still scared of it.
Yeah. I mean, we're terrified. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's not like we're going into this thing like, you know, oh, I can't wait. No, I'm seeing how it is now. We both work from home, thankfully. And, you know, but you see how it is when
very hard to work from home and homeschool.
Yeah, dude,
you need a nanny.
Especially with, for real. And especially with like everything that, you know, again, there's a lot of variables in play, right? With stresses, I think that we're dealing with versus like our parents, you know, like financially, we're working more now and getting paid less and spending more than our parents did. And these are just facts. Unfortunately, it's just how the world is. So, you know, back in the day, like, I was talking to my buddy who is older. He's like in his, you know, almost 60. And you know, he's got a kid, and we became really good friends. He was my neighbor. And we're like going back and forth because I'm stressing to him a little bit about like owning a company and kind of how that's going on my end with having a kid. And he's relating to me a little bit with like how his 18-year-old is now, you know what I mean? And he's almost 60. And I'm like, bro, like at the end of the day, it's more difficult for sure. But the reason I don't have time to spend, you know, with family or friends or, you know, as much as maybe like you did when you were my age with a kid It's we're working harder now and it's a little bit more stressful. And that could be like everyone, like the boomers are like, well, millennials are complaining that they work too much. And that's not it, man. Like, look at the numbers. I mean,
The money isn't going as far.
Dude, houses back then, when I was a kid, when I was one,
80K.
Yeah, 80K, 15% interest, sure. But we're spending $500,000 on a decent home with.
I literally just went and looked at a house. It was, we agreed on 517. It had cockroaches, a broken window, and an unvented room.
Insane.
In Ireland.
Insane.
To be in a good public school district so that if I need to resell my house that had low crime and low noise levels, and it's not even 3,000 square feet. It was 2,800 square feet.
Insane. And by the
I'm
time
in
you
a
get done,
townhome we're renting for $3,000 a month.
Right.
Because my husband's company was like subsidizing our rent for 3 years.
Wow.
And I'm like, is it worth taking my nest egg that's in a 5% CD?
Right. Yeah, for real.
And buying a $500,000 house and being completely cramped with 4 children.
Right. And
or should I just keep it in a CD and pay high rent and you know, maybe the interest rates will go down or we'll move.
That's right. And then not only that, but you got to figure 30 years down the road when you get done paying this mortgage, that's going to be a $2 million house you paid.
Yeah, and my husband's
That's what's
50.
crazy. Yeah, that's what's fucking nuts. And, you know, again, this wouldn't be a difficult conversation or like a difficult perspective to have if things were getting better. Meaning if inflation was going, it's getting worse, which means like my house now, sure, I could resell and I'm sitting on like 200 grand equity because I bought it years ago.
Yeah,
but
that's what we had.
But what the hell are we going to do with, what are we going to go buy a cheaper home? No.
We had a 6-bedroom, 4-bath in Chicago. We bought it at the bottom for $489, sold it for $650.
Money.
And can't get a house here.
Yeah. And, you know, again, what would be the perfect world is like in 20 years, houses will be $5 million and you make tons of money. That's not ever going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No. And again, this is, so that's problem one, real estate, right? Being our age, raising kids. Mm-hmm. Problem two is like food. Just look at the grocery bill.
Oh my God. Don't get me started there because we also are picky in what we eat.
Right. And it's even more
crazy. My husband's
crazy
carnivore. We keep kosher.
Yeah.
Forget it.
And then organic. I mean, dude, just paying for, talk about eggs alone. Because I was talking to my dad. We went to Sam's Club the other day. And, you know, Sam's Club doesn't have pasture raised fucking, I don't go to Sam's Club.
They have 30-year-old or 30-day-old eggs. Yeah.
They have Walmart eggs. I mean, that's the same company, Walmart. And, you know, I looked and I'm like, because I went there to get diapers. That's where we go to get diapers because I use his membership. And that's the only thing we buy there. And I go and I'm like, hey, for shits and gigs, I'm going to check out eggs because I'm feeding my daughter a shit ton of eggs now because they're just really great, obviously, for protein. And I looked and it's that basic white carton, you know, whatever. And I didn't grab any. And he's like, why aren't you eating eggs? And he's like, oh, they're not pasture raised. And he's like, dude, there's no difference. And I go, Dad. And here's the thing. I'm so frugal with my money. A lot of people think I'm Jewish. And that's not a knock on.
That's good.
And that's not
too bad you're not recording. There's been some funny moments.
Oh, I am recording this whole thing.
You are?
Yeah. And, you know, again, there's nothing wrong with that. It's a good thing because Jewish people run the country. So that is a huge compliment, by the way. But at the same time, not only am I frugal with my money, but I'm also like, I'm okay to spend a little extra money on the things that are important. So I'll buy these pasture-raised eggs because I know the research and I know it's more important than caged animals that are bumped with hormones. And, you know, these are facts, unfortunately. And we live in a country now where organic is more expensive than the cheap stuff. And the cheap stuff is just bad for you. And unfortunately, you go to like other countries and there is no organic or non-organic. It's just all organic. It's all from farmers market. Like Italy is a great example, right? Where it's like, these countries that live in these, you know, blue zones, they have chickens that lay eggs and then they bring them to the farmer's market. And when they run out of eggs, they run out of eggs. Like there's no backstock. There's no, you know, now are they serving 330 million people? Of course not. So like Americans in this situation where supply and demand, American companies are forced to pump these animals full of hormones because they need to feed this fat population that we have in America. And that's a problem. But
what's
it wasn't
doing to the mental health of the kids that are eating that stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it wasn't like this 30, 40 years ago. We have way more people than we did 30, 40 years ago. The science is there, and unfortunately, we can't really trust a lot of companies. So when they give us these eggs or when they give us these food, did you hear about the rotisserie chickens with the plastic wrapped around them?
Oh God, no.
Dude.
Yeah, I've bought those.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, delicious. But then when you start like diving into it, and because it's 900 degrees or whenever they take it out of the oven, and then they immediately wrapped it in this plastic. The plastic is not approved, I guess, to hold a certain temperature. So the plastic leaks into what you're eating. Get rotisserie fresh. Don't get it wrapped in plastic. You can still buy it, but don't get the ones that are wrapped in plastic and then under a heat lamp for an hour. That's a horrible idea. Why would you? And I go, same difference why you shouldn't use plastic Tupperware. You should use glass Tupperware. This is the research that I go down in the conspiracy theory. And I could be wrong, but I'm not going to risk it. Like, we'll know when we know. I'm not going to like wait 30 years and say, oh, you know what? I should have not give my daughter plastic and these eggs for 30 years. Oh well, on the next kid, maybe I won't fuck up on the next one. Like, I don't want to have that thought in my head. So I'm just like, I'm going to be cautious and be a psycho about it. And if people make fun of me, it is what it is. But
it is funny because in the beginning, like, we were adhering to much stricter kosher rules, but then we moved to a place where there's like barely any kosher. So I was like, we were waiting like 6 hours between eating meat and milk.
Wow.
And now I'm like, 3 hours is good. Like
let's do a little shortcut.
We've shrunken some of our strictness on some things.
Yeah. Well, you have to, right? I mean, whether it's 1 kid or 10 kids, I mean, it's hard now. And that's not really fair, like we're supposed to live in a country, especially the greatest country in the world, where they should be looking out for their citizens. And it's just unfortunate that, a lot of lobbyists and a lot of these big corporations are funding politicians, and politicians pass laws, and politicians look over things that, maybe they should be a little bit more strict on. FDA is a good example where, it's like every supplement in the country cannot get approved by the FDA, which means if you buy any supplement, there's no regulation for it. And that's fucking crazy. It's crazy that...
Would you take something that wasn't certified by the FDA?
I mean, also, too, I don't know if I believe 100% of the FDA because they also put Lay's potato chips on the shelves. Like, we know that's bad for you, but it's on the shelf. But that's also like one of those things where we live in America and, hey, we eat what we want. If it kills us, it kills us. Like, let me be an American. And that's the American way. And unfortunately, companies take advantage of that. And they know that we're going to eat Hershey's chocolate. And they know we're going to eat Frito-Lay. It's just, they know we're going to drink Coca-Cola. So.
Did you see that whole thing about Mr. Beast's chocolate bars?
No.
That he was supposedly making them to be healthier, but yet, and with less ingredients, but they were more calories and better branding.
It is better branding. I've actually wanted to check it out because he's great at marketing it. Interesting. And I love how like I never tried it obviously, but even though it's a healthier chocolate bar, it's still chocolate, bro. Like dark chocolate cacao is like the only healthy chocolate that you can take, and in its purest form, not liquefied and molded and put onto a shelf. Like, that's not how chocolate is made,
Yeah, they weren't healthier either.
Crazy. Shocking. Same thing with like Logan Paul, right? In Prime. It's like, oh, a healthier sugar drink. What? How about water? That's a good one.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, my kids were so excited to get every color of Prime. And I'm like, of course. These have way too much caffeine in them.
Yeah. And artificial, whatever the hell sugar they're using.
Sweeteners.
Yeah. It's like, come on. It's almost better to get electrolytes just to have like water with a little bit of sea salt. Boom, there's your electrolytes.
Exactly.
You don't need freaking sugary Body Armor and Prime and Gatorade. All that is just, they're good at marketing.
Oh my God, really good at marketing.
Yeah. And that's another thing too. I mean, I come from a marketing background, like, so I guess maybe I'm I don't want to say knowledgeable, but I just know how companies roll. And a lot of companies, these big ones in particular, their only job is to just get really good at marketing and advertising the product. It doesn't matter about the ingredients. It doesn't, like, there's very few companies that pitch ingredients. You know, they pitch marketing. They make it sexy. They make it appealing. They make it look cool and fun and create a brand. Like, that's what marketing does. And companies are really good at it. And as consumers, we're so used to it. It looks good. It tastes good. Like, and then you watch it.
Oh my God. My husband is so sold by that stuff. Like the Jocko jeans made in this country, and
fucking USA, man. Like we're
USA,
employing jobs.
You know, he can back squat in them, and they should last longer than Levi's. They still got a rip in them. But you know what? Jocko did replace the pair, but still.
Yeah.
I see through marketing too.
Yeah. And Jocko,
could you work for a company though that you didn't believe in their product if they paid you enough?
I actually stopped. I mean, not necessarily by choice. Ironically enough, I got let go because of the podcast. But
no.
Yeah. I've talked about it before, but they gave me like a quote unquote warning saying I can't promote any other products on the podcast. I can't, and by promote I mean like I can't talk about it. Right? So it's not like I was working for another company. And they gave me a warning. I was like, okay, no problems. And then turns out they were like digging into like other things that I've done in the past. And I haven't done anything. I was with the company 10 years. But I never promoted their drink. It was Monster Energy. I'll just fucking say it.
Right. I saw that you had worked for Monster.
Yeah. So, but I didn't drink them. I just didn't. Occasionally, I would drink like the pre-workout that they had, which was called Rain, and they still have that. But yeah, occasionally I would do it, but I just didn't believe in the product. They're just really good at marketing, and it's a great company. Don't get me wrong. And I had a lot of fun and learned a lot. But just, it's sugar water to teens. It's just not good, right? So, but they ended up letting me go because of that. So I probably would have left a while ago if that didn't happen, just because I didn't believe in the product. But I really have to believe. And that's another reason why I'm not a fan of working for a corporation anymore. Who knows, maybe the right one might come along. But like I got offered a job at Celsius, which is their competitor, right afterwards, and they offered me a shit ton of money. But I said no, because I'm like, it's the same thing. It's just energy drink. I mean, it could be around 10 more years, but I got to like what I'm doing. I got to be able to drink it. And, I really enjoy doing the podcast, and I talk a lot about health and wellness, and it's kind of counterintuitive to do that, but then also say, hey, dose your kids with caffeine. Hey, and it's like, no, especially because I knew we were having a kid on the way. So I was like, I want to work for myself, and I want to commit to the podcast, commit to the content business. And, it's worked out well for me. I'm not making as much money as I would have at Celsius or Monster, but I'm way happier. And that's the key.
That's great. And you'll get there.
Yeah. And, even if I don't, I just buy less shit. Like,
that's the generation we're in.
Yeah. I mean, you have to,
have nothing, right? Be happy.
Yeah. Whatever. It's so funny. Like my last podcast episode I did, we were talking about this because she's a mother that homeschools, and she's like, it's very difficult, right? Because of my job and money and all that, and I can't really work as much. And I go, yeah, I get it. But then, what iPhone do you have? And she's like, the iPhone 15. I go, that's a problem. Why? You don't need it. You're fine.
Yeah, my husband, I think, still has the 6.
Yeah. The 12 takes great pictures just like the 15.
I've got a 12. That's fine.
It's fine. So, but again, we're consumers, and these companies like Apple are great at marketing, and they're going to get you in to pay 50, 60, 70, $100 a month extra just to get the new phone every year. So that means you're spending $1,200 to $2,000 a year just on a phone. Why don't you take that $2,000 and invest it into Apple stock?
Yep.
That's a better idea in the long run, because in 10 years, it's actually going to be worth money versus returning a new phone. So it's like now with a kid and working from, I just buy less shit. Like I don't,
Yep.
when we go to, the store, the grocery store, I'm more frugal. Like I take my time and I look at prices and I wait for BOGOs and I clip coupons. And that's just what we
Yep.
got to do now.
We do that too.
Yeah. And whether you make 6 figures or 40 grand a year, you should do that because we're living in
100%.
we're living in a country that unfortunately just isn't looking out for our best interests. I mean, it's just where we are right now and it sucks.
Still the greatest place to live. I can't think of anywhere better.
For sure. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, just in terms of like rights and I respect the country way too much, I think, to move. I think there is some opportunities, obviously. So hopefully with, the election and things coming up, maybe things will change. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll get better. Who knows? But I think over time, it's just become a great country. And I think more people are starting to wake up to where like corporations are starting to kind of listen, maybe in spite of what they really want to do. But they understand like, the dairy industry, the fall of the dairy industry. Look at what happened there. You didn't listen to the consumer, so now people are buying less and less milk. So people want the natural, whether it's almond milk, oat milk, or if they want real milk, they actually want real milk. They want raw milk. So I think hopefully corporations are starting to listen to that and they know that less ingredients is better. And then maybe in the course of a decade, it'll shift and change a little bit. But there's a lot of people that don't want to educate themselves, and that's unfortunate. It's because corporations are still going to keep doing what they got to do if we keep buying shit. Apple's still going to make a new iPhone and charge you $2,000 if people still buy it, right? So they're not going to really listen to the market unless the market says enough's enough, and we're going to stop buying it. And that's where I think people need to kind of like open up their eyes a little bit.
I totally agree. Yeah. And I think too, just change is really scary and hard, and people don't want to research. They don't want to change. But there's got to be some people that do it, that lead the way. I mean, the homeschooling thing even, it's really growing. It's becoming a normal thing. Colleges are accepting it now. Yeah. And these homeschooler kids are testing better than regular schools.
Public schools, yeah. Yeah, that is fascinating too. Maybe the social media popped that homeschooling off because I know my wife knows a lot of moms that homeschool and they do like every Tuesday and Thursday. It's like meetups. I don't know what they're called.
My husband just started a new job. One of his colleagues homeschools. He was saying they drive to different homes.
Yeah.
I was like, I need to talk to that parent.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Because that's the big
there's
thing.
After school activities. Like right. I feel like the biggest concern is the social piece still. I feel like it has that stigma where they're like, oh no, is my kid going to be socialized?
But if you're doing the groups, right? That helps, I think. So, that's pretty cool. But also, because I was also talking to this girl that homeschools, and I asked her about that. I was like the social aspect and like, and she's like, 20 years ago, I would have been concerned, but now it's better. And I go, what do you mean? She's like, well, I have 2 kids. One I homeschooled, the other I didn't. And the one I didn't homeschool, not that she's a bad kid, but she's different. Meaning she had the cell phone earlier. She's a little bit more depressed. And she's telling me all this. It's on the podcast. And it was kind of like interesting to hear because she has 2 kids that are like 10 years apart. So it's like to get those different perspectives. She sees it in real time. She has an 18-year-old and this 10-year-old. And she's like, the 10-year-old doesn't have a phone. 10-year-old's homeschool. 10-year-old eats healthier. It's like she doesn't want to admit it, but she said to me, she goes, I kind of learned what not to do from the first one. And she sees it happen now where they're both girls and one's a little bit more depressed that has the phone and she's a little bit more agitated and judgmental. And she could see it when she takes away the phone. It's like, it's noticeable, right? Versus the 10-year-old doesn't give a shit because she doesn't understand what a phone is because she doesn't have a phone. Like she is a little bit more bored and she goes outside more. And it's like 2 totally different things. And I thought that was fascinating because unfortunately now I think the social aspect was a good thing when we were kids because we didn't have TV, phones, video games as much. We were outside. We were, being active. I remember just like coming home from school and sitting on like electrical boxes was like the thing. Did you ever do that?
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Well, we had these in Florida. They're covered. It's not like we were getting electrocuted, but it's like these.
Little shock to your behind.
Yeah. It's like in our neighborhood, it was where these boxes would go, and that's where, the grid would live, essentially. And we'd just go and sit.
Wow.
And that was like the hangout. We would like hang out there and chill for like hours, talk, hang out with friends. 20 kids. Sometimes we just shoot the shit. And now they don't do that, right? Because what do? They go maybe sit in their house and play on their phone.
They game with each other. I mean,
Yeah.
my kids, like my middle schooler son, he games with his friends. Like they don't even need to be in the same location. I would prefer them like get together and do that together. But it's funny, like thinking back to my childhood. Do you remember like those little tunnels under the freeway? Like they're like gutters, kind of.
That too. Oh yeah.
Like we used to run under the highway. We used to run above the highway.
Yeah.
We used to go to skate parks.
Hell yeah.
We were gone for hours.
Yeah, we used to do that all the time. I used to skate, and we used to like every time a bank would shut down, like after 5 p.m., we'd go and like fuck around at the bank, and the goal was to like get the cops called on us. Like that was always, you know what I mean? Like we would just do some railings on the bank. And I think again, back then that's the social aspect you want, but the kids aren't like that now because it's almost like as a parent, this is just me. You tell me what you think, but this is me like looking outside and like predicting the next 20 years what it's going to look like. But like if I did have my kid hang out in childcare or go to a public school, the social aspect would be mean. It would be
definitely
judgmental. It would be everyone's on their phone. And then if I don't want my daughter to have a phone, she's going to have 10 friends that are going to have a phone. So like I'm the asshole dad. She's going to come back and say, Daddy, Stephanie and Jessica, they all have phones. How come I don't have a phone? I was like, well, we believe this. Well, that's stupid. How come I can't watch YouTube? So it's like, I'm not parenting anymore. Like my kids' friends are the one that are parenting because their parents have one belief. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. It's not my place to judge, but I'm not relying on myself to parent anymore because I'm leaving it in the hands of other people. And I think 30, 40 years ago, different situation because there was less cool shit. Let's be honest. It's not that parents nowadays are bad. It's just there's cool shit. Like giving your kid an iPhone and letting them watch like Miss Rachel or YouTube. It's cool. You get a little breather. We don't really know the long-term side effects. So it's a challenge because we're also stressed about like paying the bills and you need to work more, but you need to put your kid in childcare. So it's like, that's expensive. So just give them the iPad. It can't be that bad for them. Little do we know it kind of is, but it's like what you have to kind of pick your battles. And unfortunately, parents are in this very, very difficult situation. And I feel like it's better to take that risk of keeping them at home for now, unless things change. And then I can't think of any bad side effects of that. Right? Like as long as we do the social groups and, you're doing those things every day, you're hanging out, going to the park and meeting kids. It's just hard for me to wrap myself around like the pros and cons of it. Like what is the con? I'm
so scared of it. I am in total agreement with you. Yeah. I felt like sending kids to a private school where they have like my son's in high school in a really small private school where he literally in his math has like 5 other students. Most of his classes have like 16 kids, but I'm just like, okay, like at least he has some friends. He has some,
Smart,
like he gets one-on-one attention.
Yeah. Now private's the way to go.
I'm still scared of taking the dive, but there are things about private school that drive me nuts. Like, to be honest, I really don't care if they wear a hoodie with the logo. I don't really care if they're into praying.
Yeah.
I feel like if they get there on time and they show up with a good attitude, that's
the difference. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So some of the private school stuff is rough too, because I didn't do that.
Yeah.
I went to private school, kindergarten through 5th grade. Then my parents threw me to the wolves and sent me to public school. I got bullied. I learned a lot of things that I did not know about.
Yeah.
And then I ended up going to a magnet school, a youth performing arts school for high school, which was the best thing I could have done. And now I'm kind of at that place with a couple of my kids where I've got one in high school. I'm not necessarily 100% sure it's the right fit.
Yeah.
And I've got 2 that are going to be entering high school. And I'm like, I need to do some looking, some digging, some testing, some seeing what the homeschool route is, seeing if we could get into a better school district, seeing if we should send to a different private school. It's so much to think about and weigh. And you have to do it way before. You cannot do it like the month before any of these deadlines are happening.
Yeah, which is so crazy that you can't like take your time and, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Yeah. And
especially if you need financial aid, which is also crazy because my husband like has a senior role and he works for the man and
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very tough. It's very tough. And, you know, the problem is I don't know if there's a lot of solutions, right, to it, because there's just so many hats you could wear. You know, it's and there's so many things you
I
can
have
do.
stopped working as much. I'll tell you that.
Really?
I was producing 2 other podcasts, 2 corporate clients.
Nice.
Where I was scripting it for them, editing it for them, sitting on there with them, helping them with their guests, helping them with all of it.
Sick.
And I was able to hold on to those 2 clients for up until recently.
Wow.
It just kind of came to an end. Yeah, it was great. They were based out of Chicago. One of them was like in person when I was in Chicago. So I was able to kind of batch record where I would book 7 guests. We'd do like a 8 to 10 hour shoot and then we would release them weekly. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great. And I was managing the web team and I was briefing the host and he was a teleprompter. He really like I did all the behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And then the other one was remote. So even though I was Chicago based and they were Chicago based, it was all over Riverside.
Cool. So that's easy, yeah. And that's
But
usually
technology caught up, to be honest.
Yeah. I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
I did.
In the beginning, I was scripting it all. I was editing it all. I was coming up with their titles.
Yeah.
That can be done for you now.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe as good, maybe not. But I think it's a hard sell. Again, this is, it's all the same thing. It's all inflation. It's all because things are, because the problem is like if AI and you were the same quality of results,
Yeah.
and you were a little bit more money, people would be willing to pay for it if everything else wasn't so fucking expensive.
Yep.
But when push comes to shove and you're scratching and clawing to keep your business or to keep your house in order, you have to cut ties, right? You can't have Netflix, Peacock, Disney Plus, and HBO Max anymore. You have to you got to cut.
Netflix is good. Yeah.
Netflix is fine. It's like, so again, and this is what's so fucking crazy with corporations. This is what I don't understand. You raise the rates because you have to, because you have payroll and but like Netflix and HBO and Peacock, everyone's raising their rates for everything, streaming, for your mortgage, for taxes, everything is going up. But what they don't understand is like, you will literally get dropped when people start cutting their expenses.
Yep.
It's the same thing with organic food. It's like everything's more expensive. If you just make everything more affordable, people will buy more and they'll stick with you longer. But once we start like raising rates on everything, people are going to start cutting you. And
I didn't even actually raise my rate with them for 3 years. I
you
kept
mean
my rate the same.
podcasting when you're producing?
Yep.
Good for you.
Yep.
That's how you do it. Yeah. And they still were
Well, what happened was they wanted someone Chicago based and I moved to Texas and I didn't tell them till the end of year 3.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That probably did it. Yeah.
And they were, to be honest, after 3 years of it, they were able to figure out how to do it themselves. And I feel okay about that. You know what I mean?
Of course.
Like I said, even Riverside is much more capable of doing more. In the beginning, they didn't have all of the same features. And there's always going to be businesses that like will pay for you to start them out, to launch them. There's always going to be businesses that don't know any of the tools.
Yeah.
And I feel like you kind of graduate from some clients and that's kind of what happened.
Yeah. And that's a good thing, right? Like it's almost
I
like
feel good about it. I was like, damn, 3 years, that's a good run.
For real. Yeah. I remember I used to do, I started off my content business as a producer and a podcast coach. And I did that for a good amount of time and had a lot of clients and made a good amount of money. But then my pitch to them was like, if I'm still with you within a year and you're 100 episodes in, we got a problem. Like my goal is, think of me like a personal trainer. I used to tell them, I was like, you shouldn't have a personal trainer your whole life.
Yeah.
Unless you need one. But you should know how to work out after being with me for a while, where it's like, you don't need me anymore. Right. And that's kind of how like podcasting is you can get up and running with somebody and get them to coach, but eventually you should be able to do this thing on your own. Because I think there's something special about like I do my own editing on my podcast. I do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just something, I know I could probably put out more episodes and I could like have more guests and I could probably have a little bit more free time if I outsourced the editing process and all that. But I just like doing it. I like,
that's great.
you know, I like watching myself and watching my guests because I feel like I've gotten better by doing that because I know, right? Like I know my mistakes and I know what to do and what not to do. Am I talking too much? Am I not talking enough? Am I asking the right questions? Like these little things you won't be able to learn if you outsource.
Well, AI will measure that for you now.
That's right. That was such like a pitch. Sign up and get AI today. Yeah.
Seriously.
No, you're right. I know it's crazy. Yeah,
it's unbelievable. It will let you know what are the key questions, what are the follow-ups you need to do, what was the engagement, who talked more, what was the percentage of the breakdown of who talked. I mean, it's unbelievable.
What
all
tools
of what's measured
in specific are you using?
I mean, I use a lot. And look, I enjoy too picking clips, but there are weeks where I'm like,
it's a lot. Yeah.
Video.ai.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That's a good one.
Or
Video.
Opus Clips or
Opus Clips. Yeah.
Pull One For Me, Headliner app.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Headliner's actually good, yeah.
Otter integrates with Zoom and it literally transcribes your entire conversation, rates it, all of that.
Yeah, Descript is a good one too. I've used
Descript too
before.
But Descript clips, words. I hate that.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. Well, same thing with Opus. Opus Clips.
Yeah, I noticed that recently too, where it'll pull something from like a different part.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know.
I still need to trim that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also very picky with like B-roll and how it's edited, and I don't know. I got to get out of it, but because I know like quantity is the best.
Quantity will help you grow way more than nitpicking it to death. And that was a problem of mine too in the beginning, since I had a production background, was I was re-recording bits too many damn times. I'm like, no one's even going to catch that.
Yeah. You're spending like an hour on a 30-second clip and it gets 1,000 views and you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Yeah. And then so are you doing your podcast full time now, or are you producing still?
I'm a full-time mom first.
Sure.
Second, I do some podcast coaching.
Nice.
I'm a freelance marketer.
Nice.
But yeah, that big client just wrapped up this year. So like I said, I'm kind of like going through a lot of transitions in my personal life, and I'm kind of putting that first right now.
Good for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have like what's the specific goals in terms of the business, or are you still just kind of in limbo trying to figure it out?
I mean, I have some affiliate stuff that I do.
Nice.
I've made some money that way. I made money with Namecheap and Cast Magic, and I just reached out to another brand that I love. It's actually something you might be interested in since you're like a naturalist or whatever. It's called Tulsi. Have you heard of like ashwagandha and like Tulsi root?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this supplement that I take.
Yeah. Nice.
And it's gluten-free and kosher, and it's ashwagandha and Tulsi. And the founder of the company was sponsoring an event that another friend of mine was attending, and that's how I learned about her. But she sent me a bottle of them, and I was like, oh my God, I love them. Like, I notice a difference when I take them in my calm. I am not even kidding.
Wow. Is it a powder or like a drink?
It's a capsule.
Like a pill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, cool.
And so we're going to be kind of partnering up, and she just made me an affiliate.
Oh, good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah. So I have like, and then too, there's like a local podcaster, Freddie Cruz, who I just did an interview with yesterday, and he invited me to Fashion Week here in Houston. I love doing like live event coverage and like live interviews. Yeah. And I've partnered with a couple other podcasters, content creators here locally. Yeah. I did the NAPE convention and the Offshore Technology Conference, where I was a part of their media booth and got press pass and did some live interviews there. And so cool. Somebody that I met from the Offshore Technology Conference is taking me out to lunch next week, and he sponsored a couple episodes of my podcast.
Ooh.
So I'm kind of, I'm thinking about going like more all in on myself versus taking more clients, because I feel like for the past couple of years, I was more concerned with making money in kind of like client work and putting that in front of myself. And I think that if I were to really spend time on my website, get a couple of good partnerships, really go all in on my YouTube channel, I know that I could get monetized there. Like I'm close to it already.
Good for you. Yeah. Yeah. I say do it. I say do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just got, a couple months ago, I got approved for monetization for YouTube, and already I'm making money off it.
That's great.
Yeah. And I think I made that tough decision when I got, laid off, and a whole other crap. It was a shitty couple years. That's for sure. Probably similar to like you guys, where it was just one thing after another. Like not only
I feel like I'm in a storm. Yeah.
Yeah, for real. Like I got laid off, and then, I got this other great job, and, they went bankrupt because of COVID.
Oh my God. That happened to my husband. He was at a startup. It was like literally winning like technology awards in Chicago.
Yep.
They were like one of the most promising startups, like a unicorn. And then overnight, overnight, they cut my husband and one of the other managers' paychecks in half. And I'm like, we're out. Like, we can't live on 50% of your salary. Like,
for real. Same thing with me. I was a startup, and they were only a couple years old, and just laid off everybody overnight.
Oh my God.
But
awful.
what was shitty is in that time frame, I actually was, for whatever reason, conspiracy theory in me, I don't want to say it on the podcast, but when I got shortly after that, about 6 months within a year of when I was supposed to get boosted, and I decided not to, they found a tumor in my lung. And that was back in 2022. Yeah, 2022, I think. And turns out, thank goodness, it was benign, so it wasn't cancerous, but they had to remove about a third of my right lung.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it was brutal. So it was a long recovery, but while I was in the hospital, not only did I lose that job, I got laid off because they went bankrupt. But also the day I got discharged, I was in the hospital a couple of weeks. The day I got discharged, my father-in-law passed away.
Oh my God.
So then I couldn't even like hug my wife, because I was just stitched up. And then during this time, we're trying to have a kid. We're going to the IVF thing, and that's costing us money. So now it's like, I don't have a job, which was the bulk of the salary of the house. So it's like, what do we do? Thank goodness we had some real estate investments, and we, moved some things around and sold some houses, and that was fine. But yeah, it was rough mentally, physically.
That's a doozy.
It was gnarly, man. But then thankfully I was like, that's the moment where it's like, okay, the Monster Energy thing, this thing, the lung thing, my health is the most important. And I got to be here with my wife, and I'm not going to get a job where I have to leave the house. We're trying to have a kid. She needs to be, I need to be there for her when she does get pregnant. So I'm working for myself. And I went all in 2 years ago on my content thing. And obviously it took me a long time. Like a bulk of my content was like sitting like this and barely talking up close to the mic because I couldn't speak because of my lungs. And once I got through the recovery, I went really hard for a year, and I gained 5,000 subscribers like that.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. That's amazing. That's fantastic.
And, it's all a tribute to like a lot of other creators that say go all in and go all in. That's why I say you should go all in, because if you go all in and you duck out, not even quality content, if you could just put out shit.
Yeah, it is a numbers game. I don't care what people say, like, quality over quantity. If you are putting out videos every day,
you're going to be everywhere.
It affects the algorithm.
Yeah, you're going to be everywhere. Yeah, you have to be less. I always tell creators, because usually they know these names, you have to be less like Peter McKinnon and more like Gary Vee.
I love Gary Vee.
He's the man. But you see him everywhere. People share his content because he's fucking everywhere. And like Peter McKinnon, if you know him, gorgeous, probably one of the best channels on YouTube. He doesn't put out a lot of content. He used to. He doesn't anymore. And you still know who he is, and he still makes plenty of money, and I'm sure he's financially fine. But you know Gary Vee more than you know Peter McKinnon. Peter McKinnon's content is way better, though. It's beautiful. But you know Gary Vee more because of the quantity of content he puts out. And obviously his stuff is very good because he has a whole team to edit. But the reason he has that team to edit that content is because he put out a shit ton of content, grew his following, monetized his business that way, and then boom, now he's hiring people. So it's like, I think you could do both, but if you want the fast route, it's got to be quantity.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I've seen it with podcasters too.
For sure. Yeah. Because then you listen to those podcasts and you're like, that's not even that good. But
I'm like, he's not even editing. He's like literally not cutting out anything.
yeah. It's crazy. I mean, look at what's that podcast with Jason Bateman and William Arnett. They just picked up a big deal they had an HBO Max documentary. Shameless.
Mm-hmm.
Shameless, the podcast. I don't know if you listen to that, but they didn't even have video for I still don't think they have video actually. And they're only a few years old. I think they started during the pandemic, and they just landed a big $100 million deal. And they also got an HBO Max series where, it's like a documentary series that they get followed around. And, that's a $100 million payout they just made from just audio. Like, they don't do video. They just do audio. It's nuts. No vertical clips.
And my dad, too, is like, how come Call Her Daddy doesn't want to have us on? I'm like, Dad, do you understand that people want to grow their own show? They don't want to grow other people's shows.
That's right. Yeah. That is the unfortunate thing about podcasting, right? That's so true. Yeah.
Everybody's out for themselves.
Yeah. They might say it otherwise. I mean, I legitimately, though, even yourself, I'm going to promote the fuck out of your podcast. But I legitimately, I think that stunted my growth a little bit because I just talk to creators and I just like having good conversations. I don't necessarily promote my show as much as I should because I'm I was in the habit of I'm doing it for the craft. Yeah. I want to have a podcast because it's fun. And that's true, but then you also want to make a little money from it. And you have to do certain steps to get there. And it's I don't know if I want to do that. I just enjoy this. It's not work to me. I'm just enjoying this conversation with you. It's not, I feel like if I promote it and I got to do what I got to do, it's going to be work. Does that make sense?
It does. But I do think that there are so many businesses that don't know how to tell their story that there would be businesses that might like you to help them with a branding piece.
Of course. Yeah. That's a good call. Yeah. And I've done some sponsorships and I've had fun with that as well. I don't know. I just have so much stuff going on. Unfortunately, the podcast has taken the back burner and I don't want it to. It started as my priority. So I just got to get to a point where I can have some more sponsorships and some more brand deals because I do a lot of UGC stuff. Monetarily, it's just easier, faster, and just more profitable than the podcast. It's hard to get people to understand the importance of podcasting. I think it's starting to get there, right? As you know, probably. But when I first cranked this thing up, going hard 2, 3, 4 years ago, it's it wasn't what it is now. COVID definitely helped with podcasting for sure.
Oh yeah.
Everyone and their mother's got a podcast now, and also businesses are starting their own podcast. I've helped a lot of companies actually start their podcast just to get the clips. That's what people don't understand. It's podcast is so important because you can get clips, and you can use those clips to push out information regarding your company or your business or your brand or whatever you're trying to do. It's just there's so many benefits to having a podcast. I do think do you think it's hitting this certain, I'm starting to see it with some clients where it's maybe it's too much work or it's getting stagnant because I think there's so much clips going around, TikTok, Instagram, all that, where it's people are all right, podcast, that's enough's enough. If this guy's got a mic, he's probably going to try to sell me something or he's promoting a show. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people, viewers, everyday viewers that aren't in the space, I hear that a lot from them. Do you get that as well or no?
That if you have a mic, you're going to try to sell them?
Yeah.
I haven't really heard it, no. What I'm thinking is if you go to these big trade shows, there are companies that pay for these insanely expensive booths.
Yeah, that's right.
For the cost of probably less than one of those booths, you could create an audio-only podcast, or you could make it audio where you push it to the podcasting platforms and just put it on YouTube. Those two channels.
Yeah.
Which are the primary places it's going to be listened to, either on Apple, Spotify, or YouTube.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Right? And you could do a frequently asked questions or call my clients and learn about my company by hearing a client conversation. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
That would be so beneficial both internally and externally for your company to have those types of audio bits available on your website.
No doubt. Yeah. Yeah, people, I mean, they definitely need to think about that for sure. It's extremely beneficial. I just think it's hitting to a point to where everyone does have it now, and sometimes the substance of the content maybe isn't where it needs to be. And it could also be like radio too. You know, I mean, how long did a radio peak for? Decades, right?
That's
And then
definitely on the outs, and
yeah,
radio is now even looking to AI. You can get an
yeah,
AI voice for $1,500 a month to do your whole radio station.
which is crazy. Yeah,
And then
it's
why
so
would you want to
nuts.
pay a full salary
That's
to
right.
a radio exec?
Yeah. Or you look at like companies like XM Radio that are just, or Sirius that are putting their chips all into podcasting. I mean, didn't Call Her Daddy just get a deal from?
Yep.
So look at that. A
I
radio.
think like $100 million deal too.
Yeah. A radio company picked up a podcaster, And I mean, look at Howard Stern. I mean, that's what he is. He's a podcaster.
I love him.
Yeah. You could say radio show, but that he's a he was one of the godfathers of podcasting before it was podcasting, him and Rogan and all these guys. That's really all it is. I mean, I see such value in podcasting. And I've learned so much doing it. I've learned so much talking to people that were my guests. And it's just so great. I wish I could do it for a year and not worry about money.
Me too.
I'm sure you feel that way. Yeah. It's like,
that would be my dream. Truthfully,
real.
I would interview anyone and I would seriously research them and make them look amazing
yeah.
and feel no stress.
Yeah.
If I was just doing that full time, like I
Yeah.
would dream of that. Like the whole
Yeah.
Call Her Daddy thing, I would even bring my dad. He would do it too. The thing is, if you think about all the lives that you've touched and all the truth that you're telling, I
Yeah.
feel like that in itself is impactful.
No, and that's how I feel. And that's why I say like it's hard for me to try to focus on like working at it because I'm
Yep.
just enjoying it and I love it and I think
Yeah.
it's valuable to people and I hear it from people all the time. And really in the back of my head, I'm like, all right, well, can you fucking go to my Patreon and just show me how much you care? Like,
That's the part that's really hard. I heard this
Yeah.
quote the other day, like impact isn't transactional, it's relational. And it's so hard because I've worked for big podcasters that see their listeners as dollar signs.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
it's so easy to fall into that.
for sure. Yeah. Especially if you got Call Her Daddy money.
Millions.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's hard to do it. And that's where I think, again, I use Joe Rogan as an example, but that's where like he's very different. I feel like, even though he's got ads and he's making tons of money, if you look at his podcast, and I've listened to him for a decade, but
Yeah.
he hasn't changed.
Yeah.
You could tell, yeah, he's picking up ads and shit like that, but he'll shout out brands that he doesn't even get sponsored by. That's authentic versus like you
Yep.
go on like, you watch these other radio shows or these other podcasts, you could tell it's like they're careful not to mention certain movies or certain things or certain brands because they don't want to like and that's where it's like the dollar signs kind of take over those folks. And I don't want to fall into that either.
I also have a problem with brands that like want you to read verbatim a script
Oh,
because like
the
that,
worst.
and I started with some of that.
Really?
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
was like, some of what you want me to read doesn't go with the story that I'm covering. Like if I'm
Yeah.
interviewing a Jeffrey Epstein survivor, a Manscaped ad feels weird. Like,
Or on brand. Depends on how you swing the ad.
it's true.
Yeah.
So then I was even like, is this the model I want to do? Or is
Sure.
it better for people to see, hey, I can put out some quality content and I can help you do that too?
Yeah.
And that for me felt better. Like my second sponsor was actually a client of mine. And I actually had worked with her and we'd had a good relationship. And then she wanted to sponsor 25 episodes. I felt like
That's awesome.
that worked better because I liked her. I liked her work. I believed in her books.
Yeah. Yeah. No
Then you're
doubt.
like, okay, I don't mind selling my soul because I actually like her. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you like the person or the product, yeah, feel free. Yeah. The devil has no bounds right there. Yeah. And I also kind of look at it like if it does make sense for the brand, like my listeners know me pretty well, as do my social media following, where it's like, I'm not going to promote anything that I don't believe in anyway. So they look at it like, all right, it makes sense, But like, again, going back to Joe Rogan, you could tell sometimes he, only because I listened to a podcast recently where he promotes a lot of stuff like health, wellness, things like that. But then one of the ads was for blinds, like window blinds. And I'm like, motherfucker, that was a payday for you. Like, all your ads are like, or spot on to your brand. But then I listened to that ad and I was like, he sold it. You know, he did it the Joe Rogan style. But I'm like, window blinds? Joe, come on, Joe. But I get it. You know, but it's
I'm like, do you have those in your home?
Yeah. Show me a fucking Instagram story where you have those blinds. Okay? That's what I want to know. So,
or like the pillow, right? Like
the pillow, right. Yeah.
Show me the pillow, show me the blinds. Yeah.
I need to see a picture of your bed. Yeah. So I don't know, man, but I think it's such a cool career to get into. That's why if you saw that last episode, that there was a studio that I was at. It's one of my clients it's called MMG Studios. And I hung out there and did the first episode that I've done outside because I have like a studio here, but now with the kid, I don't want strangers coming to my home. So it's like going to a place like that where we set up a studio and all the equipment's there. You know, like they do everything. They send you the raw files. It's a dope spot. And I
love shoots like that. I love creating little, sets.
And I looked at that
and lots of podcasters have them.
Yeah. I was
Even
like,
my
that's
rabbi.
the dream. I was like, that's the dream. Your rabbi does? Yeah, nice.
Yeah, there's a rabbi across the street from where we're renting, and he wants to do a second podcast with me. Our idea is I'll ask him all of the questions I don't know or understand about Judaism, and he'll answer them in 1 minute or less.
That's amazing, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, why
really
can't Jews be cremated? Or are we the chosen people? Or why do they sit separate in synagogue? Or why do we have to pray? Or, you know.
That's amazing. Because I want to know all those things too.
I think it honestly would appeal to a greater audience. And the fact that, you know, I'm giving him a little bit of pushback on some things that many people in our community do could be interesting.
Yeah. And I think religion's one of those things where it's so over the course of time, especially in our lifetime, I feel like it's, for better or worse, people are losing sight of religion. And I'm not religious at all, by the way. But I think it's interesting because obviously there's so many great benefits to it. And I don't think it's understood as and explained as well as it can be, because you can't really teach it in schools, right? Unless you go to a specific school. It's like you go to a public school and they're going to teach you, the Islamic religion or Christianity. It's just not
right.
It's a public
maybe
school.
From a historical perspective, yeah.
Right. Yeah, but so like in the morning you're gonna look at the American flag and you're gonna give the Pledge of Allegiance. I mean, you're not gonna do any other religious.
Do they even still do that?
Probably not. No. If they do, it's not the American flag. It's probably like 10 other flags that. They probably burn the American flag in public schools, actually.
Exactly.
This is what you're supposed to do with this fucking stripes and stars.
What's the flag of the week instead of Star Student? Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, but I think there's things are misunderstood. And I think it's important to know all those aspects. Like we're going to hopefully raise our daughter to understand, like, to be objective and to, how I live my life it's in the and, not the or, is how I like to say things. So like it can be and, like there's a lot of different religions, right? There's a lot of different ways to look at things. I think and looking at all of the religions and just figuring out what makes sense for you at the time is important. I don't know if we should think of just it's this or this. That's it.
This
it's
one takes down flags. This one doesn't. No,
right.
I'm just kidding.
Pick your poison.
Oh, man.
Yeah, that's true, though. Yeah. Because I think that's where there's polarizing beliefs, right? Where it's like we're forced into one thing or the other when there's so many other options out there. Like you just have to understand which one. And I think understanding each one gives you a little bit more empathy to that person that believes in it. Like whatever your beliefs are, if I understood your beliefs, I would have a little bit more empathy. Whether I know it's right or wrong is not our place to say, right? It's
right.
Because I think it was Ricky Gervais that had a great quote when he was on Colbert's talk show, which is essentially like a Sunday service, that fucking show. But he's on that show and he's talking about, religion and all that. And, Ricky Gervais is very publicly an atheist. And he goes, well, how many gods is there? And Stephen Colbert's like, well, I believe in one. He's like, okay, you believe in one. But did you know there's like 3,000 gods? There's 3,000 different cultures that believe in a different God than Jesus, than the God you believe in. He's like, yeah. He's like, okay, so who's right and wrong? It's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, you believe in your God. Does that mean 2,999 gods are incorrect? He's like, well, yeah. Like, okay. Well, being an atheist, you're just you're not believing in one more God. So you, as a Christian, believe there's only one God, which means you're disproving, you disbelieve in 2,999 other gods. As an atheist, you only disbelieve one more. It's not like you're, right, crazy atheist. You're just you're not believing in one other God. So it's like that kind of makes more sense to me because I would rather look at everything at once and be like, okay, choose whatever you want to believe. What's right or wrong. We don't really know. I don't think any of us are ever going to know. I just think it's important that each culture and each person believes what they think is best for, their family and their lives. I don't know if there's a right or wrong. I think that we're all right, or we're all wrong. I mean, one of the two. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah.
I guess I'll let you know when I'm downstairs and looking up saying I was wrong, motherfucker. Yeah.
It's funny. My husband's been listening to this meditation. All I know is the first line because he starts listening to it before bed and then I conk out. But it's like, I am more than my physical body. I'm like, all right. I'm like, here we go.
Oh my goodness. I'm out. Yeah. Although meditating it's fascinating, right? Because I don't know if you ever tried like legit meditating.
I like yoga. I need guided meditation. Right. Yeah.
Same. Yeah, once I did it, it's hard for me to get in it only because it's like it's so silly.
Some of it is. Like if you're going to ask me to make sounds, it's tough for me to not laugh.
Yeah. Although I have been doing quote unquote meditation is a lot of grounding. Do you do grounding?
Again, all of that for me has to be funky. Like
guided, yeah.
It has to be guided. Yeah. I can't do it on my own.
It's interesting. Like if you just go outside barefoot in the grass first thing in the morning and just look at the sun, not directly obviously, but you're looking at the sun, you're burning your eyeballs and you just kind of like no devices and you just deep breaths. I don't do any words or anything. I just deep breaths and it's different. It could be mentally. Maybe it's like I've listened to too many podcasts that say to do it. So it's just like I'm, it's like a cult to me. But man, I feel the difference after doing it once. And that's
amazing.
That's the only thing I could do meditation wise, because the whole thing of like, I love yoga, but sitting in a room and doing the like namaste, I'm like, ooh,
the poses. Well, my version of what you just said is getting 4 kids to school before 8 a.m. and one of them is having like a coughing attack.
Yes.
I'm like, okay, drink some ice water. Let's open the door. Let's get some fresh air. Take a deep breath. Get buckled. Yeah. Yes.
And that is namaste. And then you completed.
Exactly.
Yeah. You completed everything. That's funny. Yeah, that's a hell of an accomplishment. That's like, you just ran a marathon. Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's funny.
It's tough. It's really tough. And like, it's such an adjustment period too, because my kids are at like all stages of the game where like, I'm not just good with like hanging up the backpack, putting the water in the water bin and being like, have a nice day. I like want to hug my kid. I want to make sure like his little sign-in sheet is like in front of his spot. I literally got told today at the school that I cannot stay longer than 5 minutes, that yesterday my drop off was too lingering.
Oh my God. You're that mom.
I'm that mom.
You have to be. Yeah. You
and then I was
enjoy
like,
every moment. Yeah.
Okay, like I don't want to be told that I need permission to like stay and like make my kids send off a little easier.
Yeah, God forbid. How dare you?
So now I'm like, I gotta buck up to that. Yeah. So then that actually makes me think more about homeschool. I'm like, what are these ridiculous, made up retarded rules, excuse me,
Yeah.
that I can't like lovingly send my kid off and make sure he's comfortable in his chair with his friends.
Right.
What?
Yeah, that's nuts. And imagine that's in front of you. They're telling you what to do. Imagine what they're telling your
Right.
kid.
What am I not witnessing in your classroom? What are you hiding from me?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, I even, I said this last week, so I don't want to repeat myself too much, but it's worth talking about. There's a lot of bad humans out there. There's bad firefighters and cops and doctors and podcasters. There's a lot of bad humans. There's a lot of bad teachers. You don't know what teacher you're getting when you drop off your kid. You just don't. He might have gotten divorced by his wife yesterday, and she cheated on him with the gym instructor at the school, and he lost everything. And he's going to take that aggression on those 25 kids. It's like, it's possible. And why is that okay to do? Well, because he's human, because he's going to make mistakes, and he might have religious beliefs that you don't believe, and he might, vote for someone that you don't like. It's like we're just so flawed as human beings, and just the fact that I have to entrust somebody that is flawed to watch my kid for 6 to 8 hours for 15 years, it's crazy.
It is crazy.
It's crazy
And
when you
I
think
have
about
to
it.
say, there are so many parents, like we were mentioning earlier, that have to get right to work. They don't have the flexibility to be able to make sure their kid is okay. They're just like, gotta go, bye,
Yeah.
And even in talking to other mothers, I'm like, just wanted to give you a heads up. Like, I noticed something in the classroom that you might want to like
Look out for it.
not just drop them off in the carpool line. You might want to actually walk them in and see if you notice anything too. Like, I'm that mom.
Yeah,
I've turned into that.
It's hilarious.
But if you don't advocate for your kids, and you don't know your teachers' names, and you don't walk your kids in, and you don't look at what homework is due, or if a teacher is credentialed, or how many houses has your realtor sold, or all of these things. I mean, you have to background search people. I want to know if my teacher got divorced and the other parent took the kids to another state. You know what I mean? I want to know that.
Yeah. Like, we need to get email updates. Like, I love how, we get updates if like you left your trash can outside your house for too long, you get a fucking email from the mom. But it's like, I need to know about real life stuff that is impacting my little humans.
Right.
Yeah.
I want all of my teachers' social media accounts now.
Yes. I need to follow everybody and know. Yeah, it's wild, man.
I didn't hire someone that wanted to babysit my kids because of a Twitter status.
Good. Yeah. I think that's eventually going to be like a Black Mirror episode where we literally use social media and use these scores to attract people. Because imagine, and again, I'm not bashing teachers by any means. I just don't think they get paid enough. Like
they don't.
There's a reason why Walmart employees don't give a shit about you, the customer. Here it is. You ready?
So true.
Very quick. You ready? One word answer or one sentence answer. They don't get paid enough. That's it. That's the only reason why they hate their job. They don't get paid enough. There's a reason why teachers don't care. They don't get paid enough. Like, we should take care of teachers, first responders, cops. Like, these fuckers should have so much money that they love their job so much they would do nothing to mess it up. That's the thing. They need to care more about that than the repercussions.
In the HEB parking lot, and there was a gracious HEB employee who was going to help me like unload a zillion groceries in my car.
Nice.
And there was like 15 high schoolers pounding each other in the parking lot. He was like, just walk around them, ma'am. I was like, are you going to like radio back and like let them know like this is happening? He's like, no.
I don't get paid for that shit. I don't get paid for that shit.
I'm just going to make sure your groceries get to your vehicle. Yeah. Are you in that row? Like,
Good for them for staying in their lane though, because they're like, that ain't my problem, I guess, but
yeah.
And again, this is going with like, imagine how many kids, right? Like the parents of those kids, they would never know. You know what I mean? Like,
never.
This is the problem where people don't want to take accountability for kind of their surroundings. So I think a lot of that is just social media too, right? Like we're so conditioned to a certain thing where I feel like a lot of us, the vast majority of humans, we're so invested into these now. Whatever's happening outside of this, it's like, whatever. Who cares? I'm just going to go back to this later on. I'm just going to look at this later on. Like, I don't care about my relationships because I got this. It's all good.
Yep.
Like, I don't need to, you know what I mean? we just are so disconnected from the human interaction that I think when those fights do break out in parking lots, we either want to capture it,
Yep.
or we don't want to be a part of it.
Yep.
And that's a problem. Like we should.
It's a major problem. The
Yeah.
dopamine from our phones is taking away from all of our close relationships.
Yeah. Because it's good.
It's a problem for me too. It's something that I'm
Yeah.
working on also.
Yeah.
I turn my phone off every Friday night until sometime Sunday morning for the
for you.
last 17 years.
Good for you. And that helps?
I need it's like a restart.
A reset,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? A complete like disconnect from the rest of the world.
Yeah.
All my kids are here. I have very few years left with them, right?
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
going very quickly. I
Sure.
barely see my husband during the week. He's out the door before I wake up and take the kids, and he's barely home for dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good call. Yeah, it's good advice. I mean, yeah, we all need to get better at that for sure.
Even
It's
an
hard-
hour, turn it off.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely have my screen time on to where it gets alerts, like, and then it doesn't allow you to go on social media anymore. You know, like, I forget what it's called. I think the iPhone calls it, what do they call it? I think it might just be screen time, where it like gives you a notification where it's like you hit your screen time today and it doesn't allow you to open any apps. Have
How
you seen
many
it?
hours do you allow yourself?
5 a day.
That's very good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's I have to. I spend. That's why I don't scroll during work. Like when I'm working, it's
Yeah.
either I'm posting or I'm creating content, but I never scroll. Most of my scrolling, though, that 5 hours, unfortunately, is like after work. So that's where I need to get better at it. But if I've tried to lower it a few times to like 2 hours a day, and it's like that's yeah, that's a lot. You know, because it's like that's Facebook, that's social. I mean, should I spend an hour on TikTok sometimes? It's a problem.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's so
I
good.
actually took TikTok off my phone. I only have it on one of my computers, and I like only post, respond to messages, and get off.
Yeah, that's probably a good call. TikTok's so good though. It's so good.
I don't
know.
get it. I
Yeah.
think it like missed me by a few years.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, I love Twitter, LinkedIn, and I'm not even obsessed with YouTube. I do Twitter, LinkedIn,
70?
and Instagram.
Are you a boomer?
I watch YouTube with my 5-year-old, and we try to do like educational stuff, but he gets pulled in by Minecraft.
Minecraft is awesome. Minecraft is awesome. That's the problem. There's so much cool shit. It's a problem. So I don't know. We'll get better. It is terrifying though, like having kids. I'm sure you think about this all the time, but like in 20 years, I just can't. It's hard to even like wrap my head around what it's going to be like.
I just drove with my 16-year-old for the first time, like over this past week. That was like both terrifying and exhilarating. And yesterday, because he has his permit, he like passed the permit test online.
Yeah.
There's like a Walmart a couple blocks from our house, and he's like, "Can I drive to Walmart?" And I'm like, "This kid, he needs excitement in his life. Go ahead, take the keys."
Oh my God. Go ahead, go to Walmart. You'll see some fucking excitement.
Well, he's never driven alone, and technically, I'm not sure if you're supposed to do that. And I was like, 2 blocks? Are you kidding me? I was doing that at 14.
Yeah, of course. We all were. We were under underpasses and freaking almost throwing rocks at cars. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, he wants to drive to Walmart. Like, that's rebellious for him. Have at it.
Have fun, kiddo. That's funny. Well, listen, well done. I mean, you're dealing with 4 kids, so we applaud you, young lady.
Thank you.
So I can't believe we're at an hour and 20 already. So this was fun. We dove into a lot. Do me a solid, leave or let everyone know your social media, your podcast. I'll leave it down in the description for people just listening. But yeah, let everyone know where they could find you.
Thank you. BetterCallDaddy.com. I love to interview inspirational dads, anyone that has an absent father or a little bit of daddy drama. I have an interview style podcast where I interview guests, share the stories with my dad, and then he weighs in with his intergenerational perspective. And then you can find me on Twitter at Reena or Reena Friedman Watts on LinkedIn, Instagram, everywhere else.
Reena, that was awesome. Hey, I'm a fun dad. So if you have some time, I'd love to hop on your show.
I would love to have you on.
That would be cool.
Thank you, Tony.